Hello, I am Shanna Smith, and today I will be visiting with you about copyright in the computer and the regulations that are governing technology. This is my case study for EDL 850. Here is our summary. I am the principal at a mid-sized school, K through 8 building, and we're about 25 miles away from the biggest city, which is where our high school students are bused to. We have two special ed teachers. We have limited staff, but with that, we have done a lot of data collection to ensure that when we're making purchases, we are purchasing items that our staff feel are necessary. Based on that, we purchased software, and Mrs. Lynn, who is serving dual roles for us as librarian and media specialist, she installed the software programs and made a calendar to when those software programs were going to be used by the different classes. That it's been going great. We're about 4 months in, and teachers came to her and said, hey, this is really, really good. We want to use it more. So Mrs. Lynn purchased flash drives and made copies of the software program. And with that, she downloaded it on devices for teachers that they wanted to utilize it more. One teacher she offered it to was Mrs. Brandon. She felt there was a copyright concern and declined the additional copy of the software. And so she did come to me. That's the main issue. She came to me with a concern of copyright issues, that we are downloading additional software that we do not have additional licenses for. Here at St. Regis School, we're about 420 students. So kind of mid-sized and with limited resources. So that was the motivation by Mrs. Lynn, was to help as much as possible. Other folks that are involved in this situation are Mrs. Brandon, the concerned teacher. Mrs. Williams is one of the teachers that accepted the additional software. Then we have stakeholders, board members, students, parents, PTO members, and then myself, Mrs. Sample, the principal. Legal and ethical concerns. Copyright law is basically, copyright laws give the creator or content the right to decide how their work is accessed and shared. Basically, we want to encourage creativity and protect the rights of the creator. So there were certain laws put in place, and they've been very helpful, although sometimes confusing. This is a case involving software. So what can be done with software? A copy could be made to archive. In case your copy was destroyed, you could use a second copy. That would be fine. A copy can be made for home and work. And then a library can check out their copy of a resource. That's just fine as well. So what are our concerns here? Yes, legally, when a licensed product is purchased, it can only be used on one computer at a time. So you have to have the number of licenses have to match the number of computers that it's downloaded on. By making additional copies, then we're in violation, and unfortunately we did do that. This contract, it was breached, if you will, because when we purchased the software, we purchased one license. Harm was caused in the form of lack of payment for additional licenses. Ethically, it's not right to use anything beyond its licensed and intended use. So by continuing to make copies of that, we aren't doing the right thing. That's not okay. It's basically like stealing. No discrimination or harassment was indicated in this study. So who is liable? Well, when I was looking at district policy, educators and students need to research the source of their content they want to use to limit any violations that could come up. But under certain circumstances, student learning and copying of materials is permitted, and that's under the fair use doctrine. Our district specifically states the material cannot be transferred using the district's network or any software installed must have proof of purchase on file with the district. So a concern we would have is that Mrs. Lynn violated the district policy. And then additionally, our district also has in their policy, it will not extend any legal or insurance coverage or protection to any staff member found in violation of a copyright law. So as we synthesize the facts, a library media specialist at the school made additional copies of purchased software to get out of the software as much as possible. Some stakeholders know, and the copies, they were supported by the stakeholders, but the copies are in violation of the software's copyright. The facts, as we stated before, these are the same people we listed. All of them are involved in this situation. And here is more about our location. And then our situation is as stated. One teacher recognized the copyright laws were being violated and reported it. Okay, so when we're reviewing and prioritizing our information here, we want to take into consideration who was involved. So all of those folks that we listed as being involved, did we consult them? Were they negatively impacted? And do we have additional questions? Well, for some of them, yes, we do have additional questions. For the students, have they been impacted negatively? That's a tricky question, because is that software needed for growth, for academic growth? I don't know. That would be something we need to look at the data. No parents were visited with at this time. It's unknown if the principal visited with any other administrators. Mrs. Lynn, yes, she is involved. She could be negatively impacted, and I just don't know her history. If she has a history of not following policy, or if this is just a first-time thing, so that would be really helpful. Hopefully, my answer to this one is hopefully staff did not treat her poorly, but I really appreciate Mrs. Brandon stepping up. What's the culture of the teachers like? Sometimes we get defensive when we can't have the resources we want. So I'd like to know a little more about that, and to what extent did the stakeholders know about this? So, and basically I want that so that I know how best to get resources out so they can understand more thoroughly. Options and probable consequences. So option one is basically do nothing, leave things as they are, and hope nobody finds out. Yes, there are consequences for this, that breaking the law. So there's that. And then, but that's applicable in any of these scenarios because the law's already been broken. So it's a potential consequence no matter what option we take. But then also Miss Brandon could be outcast for speaking up. Option two, we take all the flash drives and Mrs. Lynn gets reprimanded. But that doesn't include any communication to our stakeholders or our staff. So that's unfortunate. Option three, the flash drives are gone. We visit with Mrs. Lynn, and then we also talk with staff. And then what else? That's the problem. We still did not visit with any stakeholders. So option four allows for us visiting and communicating with our stakeholders about the importance of copyright issues, and also initiates a meeting with PTO to review those copyright laws and discuss the need for additional licenses. The other piece that I like about option four is the review of district policy, and then also consulting your supervisor or legal counsel. Okay, so when we're talking about our options, I listed them. We need to evaluate them. When you do the least, the cons are kind of the most. So do nothing. There's a lot of negative consequences that could happen. As we go through the options, we really fall on option four as being the best option, because again, it does include all of those different steps of educating at all of the different levels. So that helps inspire open communication. And then we can also put in some prevention pieces as far as making sure that we review this on a regular basis, and that should be moved into policy. And then we additionally should really, really look at what is the need for those licenses and what we can do to potentially meet those needs because we want the most for our students. So when we're considering implementation, we want to talk about the immediate considerations, and that would be those first steps. So if we went with option 4, the very first things we would do would be very quickly collect the flash drives, consult your supervisors and legal counsel to discuss legal, ethical, and equity issues, meet with Mrs. Lynn and then the staff to review copyright procedures, and then also thank Mrs. Brandon. Secondly, I would move through and post reminders to communicate the importance about copyright laws on social media, meet with PTO to review those copyright laws, and then brainstorm potential additional sources to support additional software. Keep an eye out, make sure Ms. Brandon is still doing okay as far as getting along with peers. And then we need to reflectively evaluate our response to this situation and see if there's anything we could have immediately done better or that we would like to change as we move forward. And then the third consideration would be make sure that we're implementing a requirement that each year this policy is reviewed with staff, and additional resources are provided. I always say prevention is better than reaction. One school had to pay $9.2 million because staff repeatedly violated copyright laws. And we may think, well, this is for education. It's to help students. What does that really matter? Well, that particular situation that I spoke of only had 2 employees, was a very small business. Can you imagine how significant that income would have been for them if they'd had it in a timely manner? So just something to think about. It's not really a victimless crime. So we can work together to educate our staff and make some positive changes. So we're going to implement option 4. We'll follow through with each of those statements that we made previous and make sure we hold ourselves accountable. One thing I would do when we're communicating this and I say, oh, we need to get some information out to staff and our stakeholders, I would make some social media posts similar to this. So in a positive way stated, our students and staff are amazing. We encourage all to follow copyright guidelines when utilizing someone else's creativity. And I would encourage students to look at this regularly, maybe make it the background on their Chromebooks. And then I also provided an additional link here for resource for educators so that they can answer specific questions that they may have that pop up. So as we're reflecting, one area I hadn't touched on yet would be balancing the support from teachers with carrying on with day-to-day school operations. So I think we can do that by productive conversations and being transparent. We need to be honest about challenges that we've had and really come together at the end of those conversations to understand that our role for parents and ourselves is really to support our students. So I think we can do that and work together pretty seamlessly if we're on the same page. And I think we can do that by being honest and open. Technology is a great resource when it works. And so I would hopefully have staff be logging that they did get their training for copyright. I would have them check in and check out the licensed software. That's also creating data for us to look at on how frequently it's being used and by whom. And then we can also look at student outcomes for those particular people that are checking it out and see if we're seeing great increases. I also think that we need to have staff and students sign an appropriate use policy each year. We do currently, but we need to include copyright guidelines in that as well. We do have software to monitor appropriate use on devices, but it doesn't necessarily flag adults for copyright infringement. So that's why I really think we need to have a way for staff to anonymously report any wrongdoing or concern that they have, so that we can get the information in a timely manner and hopefully get things corrected if need be. We do need to continue to have staff and stakeholder feedback when we're looking at our technology needs, and that can be in the form of surveys for staff, students, parents, stakeholders. We can have open houses. There's just a variety of ways that we could really reach out to them. Thank you so much for listening. Here are my references, and I hope you have a great rest of the semester, and I hope you have a great spring break. Thank you very much.